They forced me to sign a prenup. Now they want it gone, because everything's mine. When people talk about crazy in-laws, I used to laugh it off. Thought it was just something people exaggerated on Reddit for karma. But after what I went through, I get it now. Some people really live to make your life miserable. My name's Matt, I'm 34, and this is the story of how my in-laws tried to destroy me, and how that decision backfired so hard it ruined them instead. I met Sophie 6 years ago at a networking event in Austin. Back then, I had just quit my safe job at a tech firm to chase a dream, a small online business selling productivity software for freelancers. I was broke, exhausted, but hopeful. Sophie worked in marketing. She was sharp, confident, and had that kind of smile that makes you forget you haven't eaten all day. She told me she admired my courage for starting something on my own. I told her I admired her for pretending to like cheap beer. We hit it off instantly. We started dating, spending weekends at local food trucks, hiking around Barton Creek, watching bad Netflix shows on my lumpy couch. Sophie came from money. Her dad owned several car dealerships. Her mom was one of those social committee types who hosted fundraisers and charity brunches, but Sophie never acted spoiled. At least not at first. Her parents, Robert and Linda, were polite. The kind of polite that feels like a performance. They'd smile and ask about my business, but their eyes told a different story. Once, Robert asked how much I was bringing in, and when I told him I was just starting out, he laughed. "Ah, so you're still in the dreaming phase. Well, every family needs a dreamer, I guess." Linda just sipped her wine and said, "That's so brave of you, dear. Not everyone can live without stability." That word, stability, stuck with me. It wasn't concern. It was judgment, gift-wrapped in politeness. Still, I didn't let it get to me. I was in love. Sophie believed in me, and I believed that would be enough. 2 years later, I proposed. It was nothing fancy, just us, the sunset, and a cheap ring I bought after selling some old coding gear. She said yes, cried, and hugged me so tight I thought my ribs cracked. That night, we went to her parents' house for dinner to share the news. I thought they'd be happy. They weren't. The moment we said, "We're engaged," Robert's smile froze like he'd just heard bad financial news. Linda dropped her fork. "Oh," she said. "That's soon." There was an awkward silence before Robert cleared his throat. "Marriage is a big step, Sophie. Are you sure this is what you want? You've only been dating, what, 2 years?" 2.5, Sophie said, smiling nervously. "And Matt," he continued, turning to me, "you're still running that online thing?" "That online thing is my company," I said, keeping my tone calm. "Of course," he said, "but you know how these startups go. 90% fail. I just want my daughter to be protected." There it was. The word again, protected. I could see where this was going. A week later, Sophie came over with red eyes and trembling hands. "My parents want us to sign a prenup," she said softly. I froze. It wasn't the request itself, I get it, people do prenups, but the way it was done. They didn't even talk to me directly. They used Sophie as a messenger. She cried, saying, "They just want to make sure we're both safe." "Safe from what?" I asked. "From me." She shook her head. No, it's not like that. It's just, they think you might be taking a risk. And if something happens, they don't want me to take a penny from you," I finished for her. Her silence said it all. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it hurt too much not to. "Sophie, I don't even have a penny to take. Everything we have right now comes from your parents anyway." She hugged me and said, "Please, just do it. For us. Once it's done, they'll finally get off our backs." So I did. I signed the damn paper. It said that everything Sophie owned before or after marriage was hers alone, and the same for me. No sharing assets, no alimony, nothing. Basically, if we ever split, we'd both walk away with whatever we had, which, in my case, was nothing. It didn't feel fair. But it felt like the price of peace. The wedding came a few months later, a big fancy ceremony her parents planned down to the color of the napkins. My family could barely afford the flights to Austin, but they showed up smiling, proud, and a little out of place among the country club crowd. That day, I promised myself something. I'll make sure they never look down on me again. The first 2 years of marriage were good, simple, quiet. Sophie quit her job, said she wanted to focus on being a supportive wife. I didn't mind. My company was starting to pick up a bit. I was coding late into the night, living off takeout, and barely scraping by. I remember one time, my website crashed at 3 a.m., and Sophie woke up to make coffee for me. She sat beside me until sunrise, saying, "You'll make it, babe. I know you will." That version of her, kind, encouraging, proud, is the one I still miss sometimes. But success changes people. And not always the ones you expect. My startup exploded in our 4th year of marriage. Out of nowhere, one of our apps went viral. Influencers started using it, tech blogs picked it up, and within 6 months, I had offers from investors I'd only dreamed of meeting. I built a team, rented an office downtown, and before I knew it, I wasn't that broke coder anymore. We bought a new house in Westlake, something straight out of a real estate ad, pool, big yard, a view of the hills. Sophie loved it. Her parents loved it more. They started visiting often. Too often. At first, they acted proud. "We always knew you had potential," Robert said, patting my back like he hadn't once laughed at my dream. Linda gave me fake compliments, "This is such a lovely home." Sophie must have had great taste in picking it. But slowly, the tone shifted. One night, over dinner, Robert said casually, "You know, with how well you're doing, it might make sense to make Sophie a co-owner in your company. Just for security." I smiled. "We already share everything we need to." Linda chimed in. "Oh, but you know how life can be. It's always better to make things official." The irony wasn't lost on me. These were the same people who had made me sign away every right to her assets. Now they wanted a do-over because the scales had tipped. Then came the accidental comments. "Matt, you wouldn't be where you are without Sophie keeping you grounded," Linda would say. Or, "Behind every successful man is a woman who sacrificed everything." Sacrificed what, exactly? She hadn't worked in years. I paid for everything, the house, the vacations, the cars. But they kept pushing that narrative, trying to rewrite history until it felt like gaslighting. One night, Sophie and I had a fight about it. "I don't get it," I said. "Why are your parents suddenly obsessed with this prenup? It's not like you've ever needed to worry about money." She sighed. "They just think it's outdated. They want things to be fair." Fair? I repeated. It was their idea in the first place. Her silence was sharp. That's when I realized, it wasn't about fairness. It was about control. And the moment you let people control you once, they never stop trying. Part 2, The Turning Point. I wish I could say things got better after that fight, but they didn't. If anything, that was when I started noticing how much Sophie had changed. She wasn't the same woman who used to wake up at 3 a.m. just to make me coffee. She'd spend hours on Instagram now, posting selfies in designer clothes, hanging out at brunch spots with her friends, captioning them, #bosswife, while I was the one working 70 hours a week. Sometimes I'd come home late from the office, expecting to find her waiting for me, but instead, she'd be out drinking with her mother. Linda had basically become her best friend again, and that was a bad sign. You see, Linda had this way of planting seeds in people's minds. She never told you what to do, she just suggested. Maybe you deserve more appreciation. Or, Matt's been so busy lately, don't you think you've earned a little time for yourself? Small things. But they grew into poison. Then came the night that changed everything. I got home from work one Friday, totally drained. I'd just come back from a meeting with investors who wanted to expand our app internationally. It was a huge opportunity, maybe even life-changing. But when I opened the door, I walked into chaos. Sophie was in the living room, crying. Her parents were there, sitting on the couch like they owned the place. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice steady but my stomach twisting. Robert stood up, holding a folder. "We need to talk, Matt." "About what?" "The prenup," he said flatly. "It's time to void it." I blinked. Void it? Why? Linda crossed her arms. "Because it's outdated and unfair to our daughter. You've built this empire together, and she deserves to have her name on it." I laughed, actually laughed. "Together? She hasn't worked a day in the company." "Matt." Sophie snapped, her eyes red. "That's not fair. I've supported you emotionally, I've been there through everything." "Yeah," I said quietly. "Until your parents decided they wanted a piece of it." Robert slammed the folder down on the table. "We're giving you a chance to do the right thing. Sign the amendment. Make her co-owner." I looked him straight in the eyes. "Or what?" He smirked. "Or we'll make sure you regret it." That was the first real threat. After that night, things spiraled. Sophie became cold, distant. We'd argue almost daily. She accused me of becoming arrogant, of forgetting who helped me get here. It felt like I was living with a stranger. And then one morning, I came downstairs to find a letter from her lawyer on the counter. She'd filed for divorce. It hit like a punch to the chest. We'd been married almost 6 years. 6 years of struggle, of sacrifice, of building something from scratch, and she ended it with a signature. I sat there staring at the letter for what felt like hours. Then I called my lawyer, explained the situation, and told him about the prenup. He flipped through it, nodded slowly, and said, "You're fine. This is airtight. She doesn't get a cent of your company or future earnings." It was the first time I'd ever been grateful to her parents. When the court process started, her family came at me with everything they had: emotional manipulation, fake claims about joint contributions, even statements from her friends about how she had helped me network. But the truth was simple: she hadn't touched the business. Every investor, every code, every sleepless night, it was all mine. My lawyer laid it out cleanly. 3 months later, the judge ruled exactly as expected. The prenup stands. No alimony. No assets. No half of the company. Just what she brought in, which, by that point, was basically nothing. The day the ruling came through, Sophie didn't even look at me. We were standing outside the courthouse. Her parents were fuming. Robert glared at me. "You ruined her life." I said, "No. You ruined it when you taught her to measure love by money." Linda hissed, "You'll regret this." I looked at her calmly. I already did, for 6 years. Then I turned and walked away. But the story doesn't end there. Because karma, or justice, or whatever you want to call it, has a funny way of showing up right on time. Part 3, Justice Served. 6 months after the divorce, I heard through mutual friends that Sophie was struggling. Apparently, she'd moved back in with her parents. Her lifestyle, the designer clothes, the brunches, the country club dues, didn't exactly fit into her new budget. Meanwhile, my company had been acquired by a bigger firm. I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable. For the first time, I didn't have to check my bank balance before paying bills. One evening, I got an email. From Sophie. Subject line, can we talk? I stared at it for 10 minutes before opening it. She wrote. I miss us. I made mistakes. I let my parents influence me too much. Can we meet? Just to talk. I'll be honest, part of me wanted to ignore it. But another part, the old part of me, the one that still remembered her making coffee for me at 3 a.m., wanted closure. So we met. We sat at a quiet cafe downtown. She looked tired, not in a bad way, just worn out. Matt, she said, eyes glistening. I'm sorry. I should have stood by you. I let them control everything. I didn't say anything. I just let her talk. She told me her parents had been fighting too. That her father's dealership business had taken a hit. That they'd been pushing her to fix things with me because they knew I was doing well. That was the real reason she reached out. I smiled sadly. You know what's funny? They made me sign a prenup to protect you from me. But it turns out, that paper protected me from them. She looked down, ashamed. Then she whispered, do you think we could ever try again? I thought about it for a long moment. Then I said the most honest thing I'd ever said to her. I hope you find peace, Sophie. But not with me. I stood up, paid for her coffee, and left. That night, I sat on my porch with a beer, watching the Texas sky fade into orange and blue. For the first time in years, I felt free. Not angry. Not bitter. Just done.